We'd also like to say a warm welcome to the founder and president of CPM Sri Lanka, Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala. Dr. Samantha Ratnayaka is also here with us, head of the technical sessions of the conference, and we'd also like to extend a very warm welcome to all of the governing council members, our special invitees, and of course to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, the participants of this conference. At the very outset, before we begin with the official proceedings, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to commence by invoking divine blessings as we do here in Sri Lanka. So we'd now like to start off with the lighting of the oil lamp, signifying an auspicious beginning for this event. And to now do the honors of the traditional lighting, may I invite the following to please join us. We'd like to be joined by our chief guest, Honorable Karu Jayasuriya, patron of CPM Sri Lanka. And we'd also like to invite Professor Niharika Vohra, who is our keynote speaker at our inauguration, and she's also Professor of Organizational Behavior at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala, founder and president of CPM Sri Lanka, we'd like to invite you, sir, as well. Professor Gunapala Nanayakara, patron of CPM Sri Lanka, Dr. Samantha Ratnayaka, head of the technical sessions of the conference and the governing council member of CPM Sri Lanka, Mr. T. Someshwaran, advisory council member of CPM Sri Lanka, Mr. Bashir Ismail, governing council member of CPM Sri Lanka, Mr. Kosala Disanayaka, governing council member of CPM Sri Lanka, Mr. Hennayaka Bandara, governing council member of CPM Sri Lanka, Mrs. Primrose Mascarenhas, governing council member of CPM Sri Lanka, Dr. Nirmal De Silva, co-opted member to the governing council of CPM Sri Lanka, Dr. Dilhan Jayatilaka, co-opted member to the governing council of CPM Sri Lanka, Ms. Gaini Punchiheva, session chairperson of session 1 of the conference. We have Dr. Ravi Bamnusingha, session chairperson of session 2 of the conference, and Mr. Dilshan Arsakularatna, Director, CPM Sri Lanka. Thank you very much to our dignitaries. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, may I request us all to please rise for the national anthem of Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka Mata, Abba Sri Lanka, Namo 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 Mata, Sundara Sri Harini, Surani Ati Sobhamana Lanka, Ranya Dana Mekamal Valaturu Piri Jaya Bhumi Ranya.
you, ladies and gentlemen. You may please take your seats now. And on that note, once again, good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the CPM International Management Conference 2023, organized by the Institute of Chartered Professional Managers of Sri Lanka, or as we know it, CPM Sri Lanka. My name is Trishma Pinto, and on behalf of CPM Sri Lanka, ladies and gentlemen, we're truly delighted that all of you are joining us here this morning as we commence this forum based on a very relevant theme of rebooting management, reimagine and redesign. Ladies and gentlemen, as all of you in the audience are very well aware, CPM Sri Lanka always strives to make members as well as corporate bodies aware of the need for the latest, cutting-edge and most advanced revolutionary thinking in the sphere of management. People and companies these days are subject to continuous change. And unless we as managers learn to meet that change and harness that change, we will fight a losing battle. In this day and age, organizations are compelled not just to get ready, but to stay ready for this change. And this requires all of us as management professionals to shift our focus away from any kind of rigid operational system, rigid process, rigid practice that was built for a period of relative stability, because those days of relative stability are long gone, ladies and gentlemen. But for us to properly prepare for change, we need to make sure that we need to rethink our management styles. Did any of you ever wish that management practices had a reboot button like a computer where we can shut it down and then restart it if something goes wrong? Well, today at our forum, we will explore this idea of rebooting our management styles. We will shut down things that might not work anymore. We will restart those practices that work most effectively, and we will reimagine and redesign our styles so that we can have better outcomes and outputs. So in line with this theme, ladies and gentlemen, of rebooting management, at our forum today, we will be joined by business leaders, by industry experts, and a stellar lineup of speakers, each of whom will broaden our perspectives and educate us on the most pressing and relevant topics that management professionals currently face. And we have quite a power-packed agenda to look forward to, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, let's now get started. As we begin with our official proceedings, it's now our pleasure to commence with the official welcome address. And to now do the honors of the same, it's our privilege to invite on stage the founder and the president of CPM Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, with your applause, please join me now in welcoming Professor Lakshman R. Vatawala.
Honorable Deshabandhu Karu Jayasuriya, the chief guest at our 10th International Management Conference, our keynote speaker, Professor Niharika Vora, Professor in Management at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, the head of the technical sessions, Dr. Samantha Ratnayaka, the members of the Council of CPM Sri Lanka, advisory council members, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to welcome you to this 10th International Management Conference of CPM, Rebooting Management, Reimagine and Redesign. I think looking at the term itself, it's a very high-sounding term. You may boot someone, but today we are going to reboot management. So CPM Sri Lanka, the leading professional management accounting management body in Sri Lanka, has been playing a major role, and we are indeed happy that our patron, Honorable Karu Jayasuriya, is present with us. In fact, we are indeed, I think, honored, and we should congratulate Honorable Karu Jayasuriya, because he has received the most distinguished award any Sri Lankan could receive, which was received recently, the Sri Lanka Abhimanaya Award. So, sir, on behalf of CPM Sri Lanka, we take this occasion to congratulate you of the great contribution that you have done to our mother country, starting as a very, maybe starting with the Sri Lankan Army as a volunteer, later in the private sector, leading the private sector, and then thereafter in the political scenario as a mayor of Colombo, a minister, and the Speaker of Parliament. So some of the highest achievements which we are indeed greatly proud. And I must also tell you that Honorable Karu Jayasuriya was the one who was present when we first initiated the joint venture with the All India Management Association and the CMA Sri Lanka to bring about CPM Sri Lanka. So, sir, we are very thankful to you. We are indeed proud that we have such a well-respected, someone who's acclaimed in Sri Lanka as one of the outstanding and excellent citizens of Sri Lanka to be a patron of CPM Sri Lanka. So I'm sure our own body would be able to travel in the same direction, and to support us on that, we have our keynote speaker, Professor Niharika Vora, and our connections with IIM Ahmedabad goes back to a long time, and I'm happy that we've been able to continue it despite few years where we had disruption due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So CPM Sri Lanka has traveled quite a lot. They have done quite a lot. And one of the other actions that we have taken in order to rebooting management is the CPM Best Management Practices Company Awards 2023. Today, there is no point talking of theory. We need practice. We need people who can implement these decisions. Today, our country is in this sad situation because people have implemented the wrong management decisions. They have not seen the implications, the great sufferings of the people at that time that they did it. I always see that as a professional chartered accountant and a management accountant, that the term reserved used by the economists has put us in this great trouble. Because according to their statements, even recent statements made, that we have large foreign reserves. What they mean is a cash flow statement where you have a foreign reserve, because reserves can arise from two ways. In the economist's point of view, you increase your reserves by borrowing. They did not realize that when they borrowed this money to tell the public that we have enough reserves, that they were really fooling us. Today, the grave consequences suffered by us. In fact, not only did they not have the accounting sense, but they did not have the management sense. Because if they took a proper management decision, I'm sure that we would not be in this position. In the accounting term, a reserve is a net surplus. That is, if you have your expenditure, if you have your income, there should be a surplus. And if this surplus can be used for the future, then you transfer it to a reserve. So you can see how and what has made us come to this situation. But the only way that we can come out of this situation, we feel, is what the theme that we have planned today. I must thank the chairman of our technical committee who came up with this. Rebooting management, reimagine and redesign. Whatever profession you are, unless you are knowledgeable in management, you will not be able to perform. You will perform, but not in the right direction. So today what we see, the impact that our country is having, the people showing their anger, sometimes, which of course they say professionals are also showing it, but if they were able to really look at the proper management and what we are talking today of rebooting management, reimagine and redesign, I'm sure they would be thinking in a different way. So that's why I say that this conference is going to give new thinking, new direction, and a way forward to come out of this problem. Whatever we do, the best management practices have to be there. You will all know why your own organizations, which are mainly the private sector companies, are doing well. They have a system. They have best management practices which they implement. If they don't show the results, I'm sure your boss will show you the door and you go out. So this is something that we need to look at. We have to look at the responsibility. We have to look at the accountability. And for all what is done, if you are not accountable, certainly you can do anything. And of course, ultimately, it will result in mismanagement. So I don't want to talk too much on this topic because we have some eminent speakers and panelists who will be taking part at our conference. The two sessions covering all aspects, the government sector, the private sector, the SME sector, the entrepreneurs, which we think is a very important sector, and Sri Lanka is really far behind in this area. So these are areas that we are giving prominence. And then the final session of the presentation by the top 5 winners of the best management practices. So where they will have to say how they have achieved success in their companies. I think maybe we can also think in the future to have a separate session for those companies who have either made big losses or mismanaged companies or state institutions. I don't know whether they will be prepared to come forward and speak, but if they speak, I'm sure it will be a big learning lesson for all of us, how we can correct these situations and bring them to the correct situation. So today, our situation is such that unless we work in the right direction, we think in the right direction, we implement in the right direction, we will have no future. So I think all of you should, I'm very happy that all of you are here today, because this conference will tell you how you will be able to take things forward, to perform better in your organizations, and also to be result-oriented. So once again, I must thank our chief guest, our keynote speaker, our chairman of the technical committee and the members, our council members. And of course, I'm very happy to see a lot of our lady members. Recently, we started the Women's Development chapter. It was something that was quite encouraging, and they are planning to take it forward. We just celebrated Women's Day, so let us now see how the women can also join with us and maybe put us in the right direction and help in rebooting management, reimagine, and redesign. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Professor Lakshman R. Vatawala for those opening remarks, setting the tone for our conference, and I'm sure we can all expect a day filled with great knowledge exchange as well as enrichment indeed. Now, as Professor Vatawala also mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, now more than ever, good management is of top priority. And so as our conference unfolds, we will be happy to reveal to all of you how we can take our management skills to the next level. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we are honored that we are joined by our chief guest, Honorable Karu Jayasuriya, who is the patron of CPM Sri Lanka, as well as the former Speaker of the Parliament of Sri Lanka. And we're delighted that we are blessed with his presence, because we can all benefit from his rich insight and experience. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, it's our privilege to invite our chief guest to address the gathering. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Honorable Karu Jayasuriya.
Ayubowan, and good morning and a good day for all of you. The founder and president, Professor Lakshman Vatawala, and members of the CPM Sri Lanka, keynote speaker, Professor Niharika Wahara, and other distinguished names mentioned by the president, and all international and local participants. I wish to thank the president and the organizers for asking me to be present on this occasion. And actually, this is take great pride in being with you with such a distinguished gathering. I have served you as a founder patron for a long time, and I have seen the progress that you have made and the immense service that you have rendered to Sri Lanka in general. The Chartered Professional Managers' main objective is to develop the professional management in Sri Lanka. I'm happy to note the progress made by CPM, which started as the Institute of Certified Professional Managers, and within a very short period, you are upgraded into chartered status, which is very difficult in Sri Lanka, in a country like ours, but you get very rapid recognition. I'll be failing in my duty if I do not thank Professor Lakshman Vatawala for all the immense service that he rendered to Sri Lanka overall, and also his team of dedicated committee members and chairs. He served in many fields. I'm very grateful especially that he was able to guide the youth into the accountancy profession. I'm told that there are about 40,000 young accountants who have gone into the profession through your organization. They are doing very well today, and we are very proud of them. Then also, Professor Vatawala brought about the CPM, very timely needed institution, because in Sri Lanka, I was just telling them, I was also telling our distinguished keynote speaker, that we have more than 300 loss-making bodies, and if these could be run by members of the CPM, those won't be running at a loss. What went wrong was we selected the wrong people for the wrong place, and therefore the taxpayer in this country is paying a very huge penalty for that mismanagement. Professor Batwal also headed People's Bank and several financial institutions. And also, I'll never forget that he was the first. The concept of private-public partnership in Asia was introduced by late President J.R. Jayawardena. So the first private PPP activity was headed by Professor Vatawala. And I don't think most of you know that this became a model to Malaysia and even to Deng Xiaoping. I'm saying this with authority because it's all historically recorded. Our model was the one that was followed by late leader Deng Xiaoping to open up the Chinese economy. But in '83, with various things that happened in our country, various conflicts, we went back and everything failed. But otherwise, we would have been a different nation today. I also must thank you for choosing a very timely and relevant topic to deliberate at a time when the country, after 75 years of independence, is undergoing the major crisis in the history with untold hardships faced by the people at all levels. I recall in 1948, when we got independence, I was a school child coming from the area of the father of the nation, and I also went to the national flag on that occasion. In 1948, we were one of the model countries in Asia, very strong economy, very strong administration, but over the years we went down. We were very unfortunate. We had 2 unsuccessful military coups, 2 youth insurrections, then rages and religious conflicts followed by political conflicts. Therefore, today we are paying a price for this disunity. It is in this context I say that this is a very timely occasion, because we can't go on like this. We have to raise our heads. We have a very intelligent set of people, youth in this country. They can be harmers. We are not doing that. This is what you all have been doing, your association. That is why I thought I should congratulate the founder and all the members, the key officials, for doing these things. We had to produce more and more managers. Today there is a major protest on taxing the public, especially public servants, which has created a very difficult situation for the government. Last few days we went through a lot of difficulties, railway strikes, port strikes, school strikes, strikes all over. But hopefully we will see an end today. I noticed from the media that I think they have decided to call off the strike. This is a time where we have to unite and not to destroy the country. We are not against strikes. Definitely strikes must take place, but it should be at the right time and the right place. that should not destroy the economy. We were just trying to raise our heads. I don't belong to any political party. I'm completely out of politics so that I can talk openly. A few months ago, I had to wait for 2.5 days to pump in petrol. We had about 10-hour power cuts, which was later improved. We had to be in the queue to get our essential supplies. So things are shaping up. So the country can only raise itself if there is unity. The organization that I head is called National Movement for Social Justice. That was created by late Reverend Sobita Thero. He was the equivalent of Bishop Tutu in South Africa. He stood against dictatorship. He wanted the executive presidency abolished, and he wanted transparency. Therefore, we very silently going ahead with those intentions that he provoked. I'm very happy that a new anti-corruption bill has been approved by the cabinet last week, and we are pushing for its implementation. And I'm also told that this is what is required by the overseas donors. Then also, we also again the harassments of students, harassment of trade union leaders. We have spoken against that. And there's another bill coming out on this issue. All what we need is democracy. Because when 32 people leave the country every 1 hour or every 1 minute, I'm not sure, I say this country is a beautiful place, it can be corrected. It can only be done if the country is managed properly. And the management aspect is all yours. We have to consider the heavy foreign and local debt, the country becoming a bankrupt nation, and also it's all due to poor management practices. Management practices also need to come with responsibility and accountability. Unfortunately, today, there is no one responsible for putting our country in this grave situation. That means there is no accountability. You can point your fingers at various people, politicians, and also administrators outside politics. All are answerable for this. However, if you consider the private sector, they implement management systems and controls. In the case of public water companies, we have the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Colombo Stock Exchange laying down rules and regulations that need to be complied with, or otherwise they will be dealt to be taken to task. They need to submit accounts quarterly and annually on specified dates, but unfortunately, these are non-existent in government-owned state corporations and are very simple management practices that can be applied to have up-to-date information and make sure these organizations are efficient, productive, and profitable, as the government is unable to either subsidize them or meet their losses and pass the burden to the society. I recall in 2001, once we came across an account from one of the government institutions that came 15 years after the due date, 15 years. So at that time I had the opportunity to tell them, look, this should not come here, it should go to the museum. And therefore the government took it seriously, and we made sure that all the public accounts should be sent to the parliament within 12 months at the latest. This is being followed at the moment to a great extent, not 100%, but it took a long time for us to get all those past accounts cleared. So we had to intervene. We had to get in private sector auditors to come and help the government auditors. And therefore now there is some sort of control. In the parliament, they have something called the COPE, Committee on Public Enterprises. They are being grilled. And this grilling part also started very recently because that gave an opportunity for the country to know what is happening. A lot of mismanagement has taken place. Sri Lankan Airline one of the best managed airlines in this country once, based on a joint venture with a very successful international carrier, went into loss because the management was changed. The wrong person was brought in for various personal reasons. And today we are paying the heavy price. All Sri Lankan, all of you present here, are paying for the losses. So these are the areas where I think we have to highlight, and I'm sure today's deliberations will highlight some of these aspects. Rebooting management, I see, will be the savior of our country, which need to be applied to all sectors of the economy, and when combined with technology, will bring the additional efficiency and cost reduction, which is a must to be competitive. Efficient and productive, and such action will enable the country to make savings, to repay the staggering debts which are over 100% of the GDP. You can imagine that. Over 100% of the GDP are our debts. Agriculture and self-sufficiency in food and the mismanagement of the sector which resulted in shortage of fertilizer is another grave mistake which is now gradually being corrected. It was unfortunate that advice on agriculture was given by a medical doctor, and that was the root cause of the failure, and a priest. But these are very costly mistakes, and the entire government machinery, from the politician to bureaucrats to the public service, need rebooting of management to come back to normalcy. This is also connected with efficiency, productivity, and higher yields, with least cost making agriculture a viable and contributing to the rural economy of this country, and make Sri Lanka the granary of these as done in the days of our past kings. Because as a nation, we have to look at our food security. In the event of international wars or anything taking place, as a nation, we have to be secure in our food supply. A lot of countries have the foresight to look at food security. I'm told that this year's crop is going to be something that is encouraging, and I do hope that the steps taken by the government in providing agriculture, the farmers, will yield better results. So it's recovering, so we have a sense of comfort from that. Today's best management practices should result in value creation, and such practices need to be rebooted to the government and state corporation sector to become profitable and build assets and not loss-making, adding to existing liabilities and debts. If it is loss-making, an inability to the nation action should be taken to reboot management to make them efficient and productive, or they be given the option to join with the private sector to implement the best management practices to restructure as a public-private partnership, which is also something most welcome at this stage, and become profitable and viable, and not be a burden to the public and country. If still not viable, then either to be sold or closed down. And I always believe that the private sector should lead the nation in building of wealth or creation of wealth. This area that government should create the infrastructure, and the creation of wealth should go to the public sector or PPP. Then only we can come out of this mess. Today, to pay these high debts and the accrued interest, we need to increase our exports and reduce imports. Hence, all exporters should be given the maximum priority, be self-sufficient in food and agriculture products, and reduce imports in this sector, promote innovation and entrepreneurship in the industrial and services sector, which all need rebooting management, a key driver to contribute to the economic development of the country. I recall in 1992, President Premadasa got this idea of promoting exports, and he launched Sri Lanka's first ever international trade fair called Expo 92. The opening day, the Navy commander was killed, but that was a tremendous success. He wanted 1,001 foreign visitors to come here. It ended up with 5,600 foreign visitors coming. And those 3 years saw a tremendous growth in the export. The theme of the exhibition was export or perish. Time has again come for the government to give the highest priority for the export sector. I saw lately that they have been exporting about to the tune of about $1 million, but this can be double or triple if there is a concerted effort and support and assistance given by the government. I remember at that time, to induce good people to come in, the salaries of the EDB staff were brought in line with the central bank. So and they were a superb service, and that was the success that we achieved at that time. The other area that the country needs, small and medium industries, a sector that's been completely ignored. I recall in the early 2000s, we had 2 development banks, National Development Bank and another bank. Those 2 banks were converted into commercial banks. In my view, that was a wrong decision. And I was one of the very people who said, don't do it, but it happened. But of course, at that time, the government thought that you can have a separate unit for exports, but they didn't supply. We have made submissions to the government, we have made submissions to the central bank, and I'm told that they are looking at a new innovative or progressive actions to be taken to support the SMEs. Germany's revival is based on SMEs. We have very clever business people, but today if you have to borrow at 30%, 25 to 30%, that won't be a success. But I'm happy that the government is seriously considering, central bank has realized the value of that. So therefore, the SMEs also need some sort of recognition. I'm also aware of the sole role played by you, especially in recommending to the government the setting up of the SME Credit Guarantee Institution. And it's accepted by the government, it's a good gesture, but still not implemented. Unfortunately, the bureaucracy is unaware of the priorities of the country and the support they should be given to the small producer, the small businessman. However, the people of this country have to pay taxes, both direct and indirect, to maintain this large public sector of 1.6 million government servants. Now, here again, I must say the average composition of public servants in the world is about 250. For every 250, you have one public servant. In Sri Lanka, when I was the Minister of Public Administration, I found, which was a very short time, for every 13 members of the population, we have one public. Now it has improved further. For every 12, now we have a public servant. The world's biggest public service is in Sri Lanka. And also look at the working days. Apart from the 4 holidays, I'm told that the average public servant works for about 190 days a year only. So how can the country go forward? So these are the areas where we have to look inward, take corrective steps. It's not easy because unless the politicians agree and that there is a national consensus on this, the association that I represent, National Movement for Social Justice, when this happened, we recommend to all the political parties in the country, say, forget politics for 6 months to 1 year, run the parliament without an opposition, agree on a common minimum program, implement all those things, including some of the painful decisions, and then go to the election, go to the people, and let them select the president or the prime minister or the party they want. That would have been ideal rather than now allowing the people to suffer. Unfortunately, this didn't take place. So So where are we going from here? This is a very important subject. We also we need to provide opportunities to make Sri Lanka a knowledge hub to provide vital industries. Industrial development is a must, and we have every potential for that. And especially in the IT sector, which has enabled our neighbor India to be the world's leader in the IT. Software and outsourcing is a major foreign exchange earner to Sri Lanka. It was about 5 years ago, this has started slowly, but now it's improving, but not to the extent that it desired. We don't have the qualified and trained youth, which I'm sure we can get the support of the IIMS and ITs of India to build on a fast-track basis. I also believed, I think a lot of you gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, Sri Lanka believe, that we have a potential to become a shipping hub. Wherever I go, I always say that when the God created the world, the God put us at the right place geographically. No other country in the world got that geographical advantage that we have. But unfortunately, becoming a shipping hub is a distant dream. It's something we can make this country prosperous if even at the late stage to decide on shipping as the priority area. I'm glad that the government is now seriously considering, but there are also drawbacks because there are also certain forces who don't want to see that happening. The other thing is Sri Lanka also can be an educational hub. Unfortunately, in this country, we still can't have a medical college. Can you imagine that? There's one medical college that's being considered, but over the news I heard yesterday, some sections, some political parties are vehemently objecting to opening up of a private medical college in this country. All our money is going to Australia or some other country. So these are the things that the country got to correct, and all the political parties must have the courage. So if there is consensus in areas like this can be a very beautiful country to live. So it's a challenge that is coming before all of you. So therefore, your conference on rebooting management is very topical and timely. Should open the eyes of those who are managing the country, all public servants, because public servants also have a role to play. Actually, in the 1940s, our public service was a model. It was our public servants who went to Malaysia and set up the administrative system. So such a model, but now has been politicized. Because it is politicized, it has been completely destroyed. So these are the areas that we have to correct ourselves, and the SME sector, which I mentioned, should be a driving force to the nation. Innovation is something that we are very fortunate. We have quite a lot of young people who are coming out, very innovative ideas. They got to be encouraged. And our education system got to be changed to suit the modern times. We give a product which is not wanted in the market. And then they have to strike or go in procession for jobs, government jobs. So these are aspects that got to be done by an all-party government, short term. But I thought it would happen, but it never happened. Anyway, we are now coming out of the woods. And also, ladies and gentlemen, I've been watching your activities, and I'm pleased that your management are highly qualified, high quality conducting of seminars and training programs. And today is a very distinguished person, very nice topics, ideal topics you are talking about. For this event, you have invited Professor Niharika Vara as the keynote speaker with wide experience in guiding professionals at the highest level at IIM Ahmedabad. We are thankful to you, madam, for making your time available and traveling to Sri Lanka. And I hope you will have a pleasant stay here. And I jokingly told her that we have 300 loss-making bodies that we might have to keep her for a few days more to get advice in all these places that we are losing. But this, finally, all what I would like to say, so I appeal to those people who are planning to leave the country. Please don't go. This country has a future. Can't go down like there is a day where we can have, but what we need is a unity. If we have unity in this country, if all the politicians think of the country first, this can't be put right. And we owe it to the generation unborn. Thank you very much for your patience hearing.
We'd like to say a big thank you to our chief guest, Honorable Karu Jayasuriya, for his message to us, highlighting the importance of good management across all spheres, whether it's in the boardroom or the parliament. Good management is of highest necessity. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to introduce to all of you our esteemed keynote speaker for this morning. Our keynote speaker is Professor Niharika Vora, and she is Professor of Organizational Behavior at one of India's most premier management institutions, and that is the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad. And she's here today to speak to us about a topic that's not often discussed, but should be spoken about a lot more, and that is courage, the role of the leader and the team in creating psychological safety. Well, with this very interesting topic, I'm sure we can all look forward to some eye-opening perspectives to be shared in this following keynote presentation. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's now welcome on stage our keynote speaker. Put your hands together for Professor Niharika Vora.
So namaste and good morning to all of you from, for this conference. I must start out by thanking very much the organizers for inviting me, Professor Lakshman Vatawala for thinking about me. I would also like to thank Honorable Karu Jayasuriya for his very amazing words and his presence. And of course, the entire CPM for putting together this amazing day to talk about something that I think is at the heart of management education and management practice. I think I will start off by saying that today morning, just the last 1 hour, I have seen display of courage in accepting that we are in the midst of a problem and mistakes have been made, and here are ways in which we can possibly solve it. Courage is not always in never making a mistake. Courage is not in always taking a position of saying, I know what is to be done, but courage is also in calling out things that possibly need to be changed or looked at as we go forward. What I'm going to talk about today is the fact that the lack of courage or the lack of people speaking up at the right time. In the last 10 to 12 years, we have seen that as the reason for many corporate meltdowns. And therefore, for all of us to sit back and think about what could really help us as managers, as individuals who play our roles, both at the individual level and as leaders of organizations, of teams, of departments, of whatever function you run, to actually create an environment of safety and courage. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. I have been trained as a psychologist, so I often think more at the individual and the person level rather than at the country and the entire macro level. So I'm going to speak from there. I think many of you possibly remember the fact that, and I'm going to give you a few examples just for us to look at, but many of you possibly remember that in 2019, there were 2 tragic accidents that happened which killed 346 people, and both of these accidents happened in this new aircraft of Boeing 737. And these were 2 accidents where people were killed, and there were several other near misses. And therefore, thankfully enough, those planes were grounded. And when they looked at what was the reason for those accidents, they found that it was a flight control system which had been put in, which by design was fatal and faulty. And the question is, of course, that the engineers and the people who put that design, who designed it, who put it, were possibly convinced that it was a smart idea, but there were tests that were happening. And as they did the post-mortem of it, they found that there were several people who had doubts, who thought it wasn't a good idea, who thought that this was dangerous, that this could, if the software didn't work as planned, then it could be fatal. And sadly enough, many of these people within Boeing, while had ulcers, did not talk about it. And the fact is, as a result, billions and billions of dollars were lost, lives were lost, and the fact is that all of the planes had to be called back, and at some point, the Seattle hangar where the Boeing 737s were looked worse than a used bus depot. Yeah? That's how bad it was. The question is, one could say, were these rogue software engineers? Was there a problem with design, or was there a larger problem that was possibly at play? So, and now I think we are convinced that not only this, but if you remember the Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal, where again there was a software that was embedded within the software testing, which whenever there were emission tests that were happening, it kind of created an illusion that there were no emissions happening while these were actually smoke factories or diesel factories. And so while they got awards for many years to show that they had the cleanest cars in the world, but at the end of the day, what they really found was it was the wonder of the software which ended up showing that there was no emission while a lot of emissions were happening. Same questions were asked. Were these 2 engineers who had designed the software the problem, or was it the leadership that was the problem? Was it the moral compass of the company which was the problem? And of course, the question again comes back to, it couldn't be one reason. It's possibly the fact that there were not enough people who were able to or felt it was safe to speak up. On the other hand, some of you might have know about this company called Pixar, which has had success story after success story. These are animation movies. They don't kill people, but they still, it's a huge industry. And not many houses, not many film houses or not many production houses have this kind of a reputation for giving success after success. And again, it is not that these these story writers are more creative than those Disney hires or any other studio hires, but they have a process where once you write a story, you meet over 6 months a large number of people within the company who will not spare any feedback or any criticism or any doubts that they have that this movie will not work. So every story starts with being a fair enough story, but within 6 months actually becomes a marketable, good story because of the culture where people talk to each other about what they are feeling, what they think may or may not work. So just the fact that, and if we think this only happens in the US, it happens across the world. We have too many examples of companies that have had failures, long-standing spectacular failures. Volkswagen I've spoken about, Wells Fargo Bank, you remember, again, the CEO said that the way to make money was to cross-sell products. And the market standard is about 2.1 cross-sold products. And their people were selling more than 6 to 7 cross-selling, the same customers were being sold 6 to 7 products. And of course it wasn't working, so they were misreporting numbers, they were mis-selling because they were too scared that their CEO is going to get upset if they did not sell as was expected. Nokia's story we all know, from making the best phones to completely being sold to Microsoft because they didn't respond in time. Again, their engineers were telling them, look, there is something else that is coming up. There is Android, there is iPhone that is coming up with new softwares, new platforms. And Nokia engineers, the higher management said, just because you can't sell, you don't come and tell us what else others are doing. So you just keep selling and you just keep developing. And at some point, we know the story. The Federal Reserve's US had a similar story. Satyam in India had a very similar story. The same manager, the company which had done very well ended up selling showing numbers that were not real, and of course investing in his son's business. And of course today Satyam doesn't exist because it had to be sold off to another company. We know of the disasters of Challenger and Columbia in NASA. 6 seconds after the $5.2 billion Challenger was launched, everything was gone to ashes. And again, if you go back and look at the papers, on the very last meeting when the decision was a no, go or go, because something technically wasn't working, they finally decided it wasn't as big a risk as it was. And people like Roger Boyce-Shirley, who was the SEALs engineer, kind of resigned to saying, if you say so, that's what it is. And again, in the end, it was gone. The Silicon Valley Bank, which is just day before yesterday, again, we will do our postmortems, we will look at it, but can't believe that nobody really thought that you could continue to bet on low interest rates at the level at which they had bet. Yeah, and of course, if you look at cases against Uber, while there were lots of women who were complaining about the fact that they were being harassed and mistreated, the CEO continued to say, as long as I have a good worker, I don't care. You just get your act together. And we know what happened as a result of that. So I think I can go on. The list is long. And our hope is that as we go further, we have fewer such organizations and fewer such scandals and fewer such issues. And to do that, maybe we now need to, as the conference topic says, there is a need to reboot. We could always say that these companies made strategic errors, We could say, but in most cases, when you really go down, it is sure that there is a belief among the managers that the senior management will not tolerate underperformance or will not tolerate bad news. So, while everything else can be burning outside, as long as I come and tell you everything is fine, that's acceptable, is the general belief that the manager has. Whether the manager will do that or not is not important, but if I hold the belief, I'll come back and tell you that. And therefore, people fabricate false accounts, report what they were learning in the field, and they were not telling people what it was. So I think unreachable target goals, a command and control hierarchy where I tell you, you do what I ask you to do, motivation by fear, people afraid to lose their jobs are all recipes for these kinds of mistakes to come too late to the notice of the stakeholders that are important to look at. So I think we are quite clear today that management by fear, right, was viable in an earlier era, if it was ever viable. But today, it is definitely not viable. And maybe in small organizations where goals were reachable, progress was directly observable, tasks were individually executed, you still could do some of this. However, today, when we live in volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous times, I think the script doesn't work. We need to find a new script where you will have to hear from every corner whether these people think they have a seat at the table or they don't think they have a seat at the table. Whether they think their voice is of value or not. Can management systems be designed to be able to hear them, absorb them, and then create action plans around it? So I think what happens typically is when people feel unsafe, and we are all wired to survive. We are not here today as the most dominant species in the world because we are dumb, but we're smart. We know that to survive, whatever happens, we have to be away from harm's way. And if we have to be away from harm's way, people will tend to not stand out. Why don't I just be part of the crowd? I will keep quiet unless my voice is valued. I will not want to be wrong. Yeah, I will be fearful of offending my boss because my boss has the power to actually shout at me, to affect my appraisals, and also maybe to fire me. I would hold back. I don't want to look embarrassed. I don't want to be embarrassed, and I want to fit in along with the status quo. This is what people do. So I think in psychology we say that we are masters at impression management. And who in this room would agree that they would like to be ignorant, or to be called ignorant, or to be called incompetent, or to be called intrusive, or to be called negative? So to impression manage, we don't ask questions, we don't admit weaknesses, we don't offer ideas, and we don't critique the status quo. So we are very much like what we do on Instagram. Yeah, this is who I might look like, but my Instagram picture is like the one above, right? We don't take risks, we dress ourselves up, we look more beautiful than we are, and we just want to say everything is hunky-dory till you find out. As of me, I'm not going to tell you anything. So I think fear, kind of environments where we want people to just do and not talk, create ripe environments for impression management. And as soon as we do start impression management, we stop taking interpersonal risks. I will not call out, I will not say, I will maintain status quo, and I'll just keep quiet. So just for you all to look at, I think there is the cycle of psychological danger, yeah, where there is a fear of admitting mistakes, There is a tendency to blame others. I don't share my view, especially if it is different from yours, and I believe that you know what I know. I think that the struggle today, the need for all of us today, is to convert this into a cycle of safety, where I feel comfort in admitting mistakes. That's why I said you need courage. You need to learn from failure. You need to openly share ideas, and that would possibly lead to better innovation and decision making. So my next part of the talk is to talk a little bit more about how do we convert this psychological danger into psychological safety? How do we create that cycle? I think we have giants who talk about it. There is Amy Edmondson of Harvard University, who actually did a fair amount of work in this area, and she's been doing this for many years, and she has written this book called The Fearless Organization, and she speaks about a shared psychological safety as one of those reasons, and she talks about a shared understanding by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. Psychological safety also means that you embrace the conflict, you speak up, knowing that your team has your back and you have their back, right? I will never speak up if I don't have a back, if I don't think I will be supported. If the moment I sense danger, I'll get back into my safety, being safe behavior. So some of you might wonder, is this now trust, which is now being called psychological safety? This is not trust. Trust is basically when I trust you. Yeah, it's individual. Psychological safety is when I believe the group is safe for me to speak up. The group it's a group concept. It's not an individual concept. Because the moment I make it an individual concept, then I can point fingers at you every time you don't speak. I can say, well, you should have been smart enough, you should have been courageous enough, you should have been moral enough to speak up. And therefore, as leaders, as managers, we can take off and say, it was not my fault, it's my team who are weak and who are not smart enough and who are not courageous enough to speak up. What we want to convert it into is, have you done enough to create a culture where it's okay for people to speak up? In fact, Google did a study some years ago where they looked at teams who did very well and who didn't do well. And one of the things they found was that in those teams that did well, one thing that was common, among other things, they had 6 other things, one thing that stood out common was the presence of psychological safety. And one thing that was surely absent in those teams that did not do well was the absence of psychological safety. So I think it's a powerful finding, just to say that yes, you need safety. I also want you to be clear that when I talk about psychological safety, I'm not saying it is about being nice. It is about coddling people. Okay, we are nice to each other, we don't say anything. We're not saying that. It is not consensus decision making. Do you agree? Do you agree? Do you agree? That is not what psychological safety is. It is not unearned autonomy that I can say whatever I want to. It is not a shield from accountability. I told you, now it's your job to do what you need to do. It is not political correctness. It is not rhetorical reassurance. It's fine, you can tell me anything and then I will shout when I hear something that I don't like, or wrapping people in comfort. And it is not also freedom to say whatever one likes. It is voice, but not disruption, not withholding, not simply processing. It is actually contribution. So when we have productive contribution and speaking up is where we actually start to get psychological safety, where I'm contributing because I think I have something important to tell you, and I think it's okay for me to speak about. So, as I said, it is not about being nice, but it is being in the learning zone. I will learn, you will learn, because both psychological safety and accountability is high at this point of time. Because when that is high, we learn with each other. So I don't want us to say, look, I will be psychologically safe, I will tell you what you need to hear, but I will take no accountability. This is sometimes what bureaucrats do. I'll tell you what it is, but I'm not accountable for it. This is what sometimes politicians do. I have nothing against both of them. But they will say, but they will not be held accountable. I think when we speak about psychological safety, when we speak about being in the learning zone, I'm both taking accountability and I'm saying, I will say what needs to be said because it is for the good of the group, and I know my group will hold me as I do that. So, of course, then your question to me would be, how do we build it? So, we need a place which is safe to belong, which is safe to contribute, safe to speak up, and safe to learn. Yeah? And to do all of this, it's not easy. It's a very important endeavor, but it's not easy. Just to take you through some of that, please remember it's not a silver bullet. It doesn't just happen. It's not something that I can fire and now we're all going to be safe. It needs to be at the forefront of strategy. Every manager needs to think about, every person who's leading a department needs to think about, how do I really make my department people who work with me safe? Yeah? And it isn't created overnight. It is, and once created, it is not likely to stay forever. It is delicate, it is dynamic, it is perishable, it's not going to be permanent, so it requires time and continuous intention. I can't say today will be safe and tomorrow it's okay, just tell me what I want to hear. Yeah? It requires a shift in the mindset and practices of leaders and supportive organizational processes, and it is not a substitute for psychological risk management. It is actually the foundation of good work design. And there is enough research on this, and I'll show you some aspects of work design that possibly work. You need to work on the leadership mindset and process. Each of these are evidence-based. I'm not just saying it just because, I want to say good things to you. This is based on years of research, not just by me, but people across the world. It requires sharing skills. It requires seeking and sharing information, right? I can't say, you tell me, but I will not tell me what is in my kitty, which is what a lot of managers do. They would like to hear everything, but they don't want to be transparent of the information that they hold. It has to be a reciprocal give and take. It has to be practice of empathy by everyone. I have to be, if I'm the leader, I have to be empathetic to your fear and to your courage in speaking up. As a member, you have to be empathetic to me because I may not be always ready to listen to the worst news. Yeah? And therefore, you possibly also need to share it with me in a certain way. Clarity of roles helps. This is management 101. It doesn't matter what we do. You need to clarify roles for people because when you have clearer roles, there is lesser confusion and lesser likelihood of people fighting, of people hiding from each other. When you onboard people, which is where we actually give a lot of the messages, can you onboard with the intention to be safe? Can we have fair and consistent practices? You can't say, show me the face, I'll tell you the rule, which is what typically happens. But can you have a rule irrespective of the face and the color of the shirt of the person? And can you have straight talk conversations as part of your process? These are some of the things that contribute to psychological safety. So, summing up, I think you have to lead the way, irrespective of whether you're the leader, you're a team member, or an individual contributor. More so if you're a leader. You have to promote conversations. You have to ask a lot of curious questions. Please move away from asking yes, no questions, which is what leaders love to do. Is it okay? What will I say? Yes. Or is it not okay? No. That's all I will say, because that's what I hear you asking me. So if you ask curious questions, you get better answers. You create room for people to reveal mistakes. Use phrases such as, I may miss something, I need to hear from you. So create that openness, that that wedge for the person to speak. Encourage growth in areas that need improvement. You already know what they are. Be mindful that employees do not feel slighted. And you know, it's very common. I was doing some work for a shipping company once, and this shipping company had invited all its masters and chief engineers to come and talk about some of the near misses that happened on the ship. Yeah? And the owners of the shipping company were sitting here. So, you know, I created this design. I told them, you all need to talk about it, and then you present and say what you learned from it. So as I was walking around, they said, are you sure you want us to talk about all our near misses? I said, yeah, that's why the whole program is. So I again went and asked these people, are you sure you want to hear? Because they seem to be not so sure about it. No, that's exactly why we want to be here, and so on and so forth. The first group stands up, and they start making a presentation, and the faces of these people are turning really red. The second group stands up, and they're not even halfway into the presentation. One of them stands up and starts shouting at these people, how dare you, what kind of ships do you run? I thought you were responsible, blah, 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 all of that. Of course, he sits down. The next third, fourth, fifth group stands up, makes a completely Mickey Mouse presentation. Yeah, they know exactly what to say and not what not to say, and the whole purpose is lost. So when you do ask people to share some of the bad news, you have to hold your emotions at bay, yeah, because finally nothing happened on the ship. The ship came back alive, people came back alive. Can you hear? Can you help them to learn? When people approach you, you have to be non-judgmental. You can say, how dare you make this mistake? I didn't expect this from you. The moment you hear, people will say, I'll tell you all the nice things because that will make me look good in front of you. Encourage people to discuss not issues that are just happening, but potential issues. What might happen? Because that is easier for people to speak up than to what is really happening. It is also a precursor to what might be happening. Let your team experience you as confident and secure, not somebody who's going to be insecure and less confident as soon as you raise something, and encourage your team to challenge decisions. I think those are some of the things that we need to do. And while I can say this standing off here, having worked with large number of managers and leaders, I can say this is not important. Yeah, this is not easy. It's extremely important, but it's very, very difficult because my fear as a leader also rears its head. My ego as a leader also rears its head when I listen to another person. The only way you possibly can make sure that you do it is because you realize that this is something that I need because it has positive outcomes all around. There are mental health and well-being outcomes, there are safety outcomes, there is innovation and learning, there is better productivity and performance, and there is greater diversity and inclusion. And only if I possibly keep reminding me that yes, in the short run, this may not look really good, but in the long run, this will really help me. And in the long run is not, when I'm dead, but in the long run, which you and I will see very soon, I think it's important. It may give you more courage to allow people to tell you what it is. Because please remember, in the context that we live in, more and more, you alone will not have all the answers. You will need to go back to your teams to listen, to figure out what it is. So thank you. Remember that safety is a muscle, not a burden. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Niharika Mohra. I'm sure all of us can glean so many gems of wisdom from that perspective that she shared on how we should create a culture of psychological safety and why it's necessary for our team members to be able to speak without fear, to be able to share ideas and feel comfortable in taking risks without being afraid of the repercussions. So thank you very much, Madam, for sharing that with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have a special announcement to make to all of you. This year, CPM Sri Lanka is celebrating its 15th year. And yes, that's right, that's 15 years of grooming, of enriching, and of building the managers of Sri Lanka. So to mark the 15th year of CPM Sri Lanka, we have a very special motto and logo that we would like to reveal on this occasion. Before it comes up on screen, allow me to tell you a little bit about the motto that we are unveiling today. The motto is promoting best management practices, and this motto inspires us all as members to share proven best practices in this industry, demonstrated by leading exponents in the field, so that every one of our organizations can raise the bar of performance despite the challenges that we faced in the recent past, so that we can reach great levels of excellence in our business. So with that motto, promoting best management practices, it's now our pleasure to unveil the special anniversary logo for our 15 years at CPM Sri Lanka. And to now do the honors of unveiling the logo on screen, it's my pleasure to invite on stage Honorable Karo Jayasuriya, our chief guest today, along with Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala, the founder and president of CPM Sri Lanka. As our dignitaries join us, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and invite them on stage. We now like to invite our chief guest, Honorable Karo Jayasuriya, to please press the button on the laptop and launch our 15th anniversary logo. All right, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to invite our dignitaries to step to a side as we now take a look. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. 15 years of CPM Sri Lanka. Let's put our hands together as we celebrate this milestone. That's the logo, and you know the motto, promoting best management practices. Thank you very much to our dignitaries on stage, our chief guest, our keynote speaker, and of course, the founder and president of CPM Sri Lanka, Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala. On that note, with that happy news of our commemoration of 15 years, ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to the rest of our proceedings. Up next, we'd like to showcase for you the official corporate video of our organization. So I invite you now to turn your attention to the screen as we take a look.
The Institute of Chartered Professional Managers of Sri Lanka provides a link between the private and public sectors for the advancement of professional management. CPM Sri Lanka encourages her members and students to proactively seek out learning opportunities through their varied conferences, seminars, journals and workshops, showing their devotion both to their personal and their company's growth. They engage with their professional institute to find solutions for their company and for themselves while maintaining a positive attitude in their relationships and their work. In a short span of period, the Institute has passed many milestones and has won the hearts of over 3,500 members from every profession. CPM Sri Lanka is recognized internationally and is an active member of the Association of Management Development Institutions in South Asia, AMDISA, and having affiliations with Malaysian Institute of Management, Indian Institute of Ahmedabad, and All India Management Association. The Governing Council is the Institute's apex governance body and comprises visionary academic and business leaders with the affiliations of patrons and advisory council. In order to make the services and activities of the Institute more effective, the Governing Council is supported by various committees which provide oversight on specific areas relating to the Institute's operations.
The Institute of Chartered Professional Managers of Sri Lanka is a leading professional management body in Sri Lanka. We were initially set up in the year 2008 as a Certified Professional Managers of Sri Lanka with the assistance of the All India Management Association. So this foreign link has also helped us, and we are now engaged in giving professional membership to managers in both the public and the private sector, and we have around 3,500 members who are actively involved with the Institute. We conduct many important events. The main event, of course, is the annual conferences that we are holding, then the evening for managers, and also specialized courses for the managers, which includes the management and entrepreneurship program, which will enable most of the managers in companies, in business organizations to obtain career progression in their various management roles that they are playing. So we are very happy that the Chartered Professional Managers, which is inception in 2008, has today been elevated to one of the best and the leading professional management body in Sri Lanka.
The Institute study program has two paths that ultimately meet in the Institute's membership. The Chartered Professional Manager program will add measurable and sustainable improvements to your self-awareness while you become an agile and adaptable future-ready leader. The Institute also conducts certificate, diploma and advanced diploma programs in management and entrepreneurship with a fully fledged syllabus and grading systems. The diploma programs will form a foundation for young professionals who wish to pursue membership qualifications which form a separate career path. CPM confers two types of memberships, corporate membership and individual membership. CPM Sri Lanka corporate membership helps organizations build best management practices and standards to stay ahead of the competition through various public and customized in-house programs, executive development programs and signature events. Membership of CPM Sri Lanka is offered in 3 categories of associate, member, and fellow. Membership is open to individuals seeking to develop their professional skills and pursue management careers in industrial, business, service sectors or the public sector. On fulfilling required qualifications and experience, membership is conferred upon careful evaluation by the membership committee and the approval of the governing council. Members will find a complete portfolio of events and opportunities to keep their professional expertise alive, updated and on the cutting edge of development. The Institute organizes international management conferences, knowledge-sharing forums, executive education and professional development programs, management quiz competitions, professional development programs, networking and sports events, CSR projects, mentoring programs and interviews from business tycoons. The Chartered Manager Journal is very popular not only for its high-quality contents and presentation, but it also helps to sustain a strong bond between the Institute and its members. The Professional House will contain technological, study and fellowship facilities. Members will be linked together through networking facilities and the official member directory. Members have the occasion to govern themselves by joining the council at the annual AGM. CPM Sri Lanka now has 3,500 plus membership of prominent personalities from diverse professions, covering board directors, group, managing directors, chief executive officers, senior, middle and junior level executives, entrepreneurs and other professionals. The Institute of Chartered Professional Managers of Sri Lanka, the highest professional accolade in professional management in the country.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, a brief overview of what CPM Sri Lanka does. And as you know, it's a leading professional association in the country for those of you engaged in management roles. We're happy to celebrate 15 years this year, and we look forward to many, many more years of success in grooming our leaders for corporate organizations and beyond. Well, it's not just our 15 years this year, ladies and gentlemen. We are also, as you can see on screen, commemorating our 10th International Management Conference. That's yet another milestone. And helping us to partner with our conference this year, we have our sponsors. We'd like to thank them very much for their support, and we'd like to take a few moments to recognize them as well. We'd like to say thank you to our main sponsor, MasterCard, our exclusive print and digital media partner, Daily Mirror and Daily FT of Vijaya Newspapers Limited. Our corporate sponsors include Lanka IOC and Nutri-Innovate Lanka. So big thank you to our sponsors. Let's now take a few moments, ladies and gentlemen, to view the corporate videos of these sponsors. Take a look.
Lanka IOC, an overseas venture of Indian Oil Corporation, is Sri Lanka's #1 listed energy company. Lanka IOC's strong corporate governance and ethics has made it a force functioning with transparency, integrity, and accountability. With Sri Lanka propelling itself on the road to development and prosperity, Lanka IOC has a major role as an integrated energy company, playing a national role in oil security. Our resilience and foresight will help improve the Sri Lankan lives and foster change in the transport industry of today and tomorrow. We believe that our company should be responsible to the society in which it works and the environment in which it operates. Lanka IOC, bringing energy to life.
If you value lifestyle, look for the extraordinary. If you seek for business, look for insightful. If you seek for politics, look for anticipation. If you love sports, look for the passion. Daily FT, be empowered.
Those were our sponsors on screen, ladies and gentlemen. It's now time for us to officially extend our heartfelt appreciation to them by providing them with tokens. And to now do the honors of presenting these tokens of appreciation to our sponsors, I'd like to invite back on stage our chief guest, Honorable Karu Jayasuriya, to please join us, along with Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala, the founder and president of CPM Sri Lanka. We'd like to invite our dignitaries now join us. Let's put our hands together as our chief guest and our founder and president join us up. So it's time now, ladies and gentlemen, to recognize our sponsors yet again. We'd like to invite a representative from each of our sponsors to please join us and accept a token of appreciation on behalf of CPM Sri Lanka. Let's now invite on stage a representative from our main sponsor, MasterCard. Do we have a sponsor from MasterCard here? Yes, we do. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please put our hands together as we say a big thank you to MasterCard. MasterCard is our main sponsor. We have the lovely Mahisha Amarasura here. Thank you for joining us. Let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for MasterCard as we thank them for joining forces with us as our main sponsor. Next up, we'd like to thank our print and digital media partner, Daily Mirror and Daily FT of Vijaya Newspapers. I hope we do have a representation here from them. Yes, we do. Can we please put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for our print and digital media partner, Daily Mirror and Daily FT of Vijaya Newspapers Limited. Thank you very much for supporting us. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause to our print and digital media partner, Daily Mirror, Daily FT. We'd now like to thank our corporate sponsors, Lanka IOC. Lanka IOC, do we have a representation from them here? I believe we don't have anybody from Lanka IOC, so we move on. Nutri-Innovate Lanka. Yes, we do have representation right there. Can we please put our hands together for our corporate sponsor, Nutri-Innovate Lanka. Thank you very much for joining hands with us as our corporate sponsor. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, our corporate sponsor. Put your hands together for Nutri-Innovate Lanka. We say a big thank you to them for their generosity and their support towards our conference. Once again, a big thank you to all of our sponsors, and thank you very much to our chief guest, and thank you to Professor Vatavala as well. Ladies and gentlemen, at our conference this year, Our various thought-provoking sessions today will encourage all of us as managers to expand our boundaries and to use the right skills effectively so that we can evolve and stay ahead. Each of the segments that have been planned today have been tailored specifically to help us discover cutting-edge concepts in line with the theme of management rebooting. So, to now give us a glimpse into the technical sessions this year, as well as to provide us with a few closing remarks as we come to the end of our inauguration, it's now our pleasure to hear from the head of the conference technical sessions. He's also a governing council member of CPM Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, let's now welcome on stage Dr. Samantha Ratnayaka.
Rebooting is a journey of radical self-inquiry. I think we need to collectively, together, search the meaning of how to do that radical self-inquiry. Chief guest, the keynote speaker, the president and the fellow council members, director and the staff of CPM, distinguished invitees. Let me make a very brief closing remarks. I will put it into two perspectives. One is diffuse, and from diffuse to infuse. So diffuse means it's in the wide area of something or between many people. So as we mark 10th year of our conference from CPM point of view, so I have been involving in this technical work last 7 conferences consecutively. If I recollect a couple of key topics, themes we have covered, we looked at management while taking the management into the spotlight, the management development through international collaborations and networking. We looked at transformational leadership, the ideas into action. We looked at the innovative strategies, the quest for management excellence. We looked at, before the pandemic, the management 4.0, the readiness and strategy. So during the pandemic time, we looked at beyond the pandemics, learn and lead. Last year, we have explored the meaning of management practices, decoded disruptions and choices. So today, we are looking at rebooting management, reimagine and redesign. So metaphorically, it's like a machine. We have to start, we have to restart, we have to revive, we have to find ways and means of that execution. With that, let me come to my second area, infuse. Diffuse to infuse, that's what we all are looking forward. Starting from president, the infusing of filling and pervading of this idea, where he's been the president, the founder, established the need for that rebooting. So that CPM is coming forward to help from an institutional point of view because we are an integrative management professional body. Chief guest highlighted a couple of grim ingredients of during his career in terms of political to corporate, but he has highlighted some of the insights for us to look at very deeply. With that, the keynote speaker, Professor Vohra, so you have invited us to find out our moral compass. And are we ready for that rewriting that particular script? I think we need to rewrite. So in that sense, we have a task of bringing this psychological safety in our workplaces, as well as we need to look at the accountability factor. I think it's all happening in that learning zone. So that's the good news. So all in all, it's time for us to stand and deliver for that. So if you look at soon after this inauguration, in the next session, you will be looking at Rebooting and Reimagine, where the government, the public sector, the business and strategy, the two perspective speakers, and the panel discussion is on the card. So after lunch, the vital point that Chief Guest also has highlighted, we are going to look at this SME sector, entrepreneurship, the business, the corporate thinking. For that panel is very much eagerly waiting to share some of the insights, and I have a happy news, and Professor Vohra also would like to join in that post-lunch session, particularly sharing some of corporate and other diverse organizational behavior thinking. And the final one, it's your day. We are going to witness some of the intended top companies' best practices while having all these economic odds. Let's see that what they have done, what they have executed in their respective organizations. So while thanking the chief guest, the keynote speaker, the president and the fellow council members, the director and the staff, and all those who have supported for this, I want to invite you to look at rebooting, whether management or not. It's a journey of radical self-inquiry. So we need to now keep on engaging in that journey. It is not a destination, it is a journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Dr. Samantha Ratnayaka for giving us an overview of the technical sessions, as well as providing us with very apt closing remarks for our inauguration ceremony. The final item on the agenda right now, ladies and gentlemen, is to say thank you to the very esteemed dignitaries who've joined us here and graced our inauguration. Before I call the dignitaries on stage to now present tokens of appreciation, I'd like to invite the presentation party, Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala, Mr. Kosala Disanayaka, Mr. Bashir Ismail, and Mr. Hen Nayaka Bandara. All of them are Governing Council members. We'd like to invite you to please join us on stage as we get ready to appreciate our dignitaries. Let's put our hands together for our Governing Council members, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, the first person we would like to invite to receive the token and receive our heartfelt gratitude is our chief guest. We'd like to say thank you to Honorable Karo Jayasuriya and invite him now to please join us up on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please give a resounding round of applause to our chief guest here this morning, Honorable Karo Jayasuriya, the former Speaker of our Parliament. And as Sir joins us, we'd also like to make a very special mention of his receipt of the prestigious award, Sri Lanka Abhimani Award, which was given by the government of Sri Lanka to Honorable Karo Jayasuriya. So we'd like to congratulate him. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, let's put our hands together and say thank you to Honorable Karo Jayasuriya. So we'd like you to please stand on stage for a few minutes more as we invite the rest of our dignitaries to join. Please do be with us on stage. Next up, we'd like to say thank you to our keynote speaker. Let's put our hands together for Professor Niharika Vohra. Professor Niharika is the Professor of Organizational Behavior at IIM Ahmedabad. And we'd like to tell you something special about the tokens that are being presented, ladies and gentlemen. All of the tokens are photographs taken in Sri Lanka more than 140 years ago. So this is a very special token. We have the photograph that will be coming up very shortly. So the photograph will be coming. There we have it. This is a picture of the Grand Oriental Hotel, and these were taken like in the 1890s or so, when cameras were first an innovation. So there you go. That is for Professor Niharika Vohra. Please do stay on with us on stage. Next up, we'd like to say thank you to the head of our technical sessions. Let's put our hands together for Dr. Samantha Ratnayaka. Once again, we have a very old picture coming his way. That's of a ferry boat, ladies and gentlemen, in our canals of Sri Lanka. So that's for Dr. Samantha Ratnayaka. And next up, we'd like to offer our appreciation to the director of CPM Sri Lanka, who's also the secretary of our conference. Put your hands together for Mr. Dilshan Arsukularatna. And yet another ancient picture of Ceylon, as it was known in those days. So that's a very special gesture that we'd like to showcase before all of our dignitaries here. We'd now like to invite our chief guest, Honorable Karu Jayasuriya, to present this token of appreciation to our founder and president of CPM Sri Lanka, Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please recognize Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala for his very, very vital role in our organization of CPM Sri Lanka. And with that, with all our dignitaries now on stage, we'd like to invite you to please stand by for a group photograph. You can feel free to showcase your mementos to the camera. I'm sure that's a very, very interesting highlight that we'd like to present before our photographers. So there we have it. Those are all of our dignitaries. We thank them for spending their precious morning with us here at our inauguration. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, can we please put our hands together as we say thank you to our esteemed invitees on stage. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're now drawing close to the end of our inauguration ceremony, but this only means it's the beginning of the technical sessions to follow soon after. We will be taking a short break for all of you to have tea and refreshments that are served outside, but please keep in mind, it's going to be a very quick break because we have a power-packed agenda. We have so much to follow right after this, so we'd like to request all of you, ladies and gentlemen, to please join us back in the hall in 15 minutes. It's 11 a.m. on my watch. I'd like to see you back at 11:15 so that we can get started with our first session. So on that note, please feel free to join us for tea, and I'll see you back in your seats at 11:15 a.m. Thank you.